Paul was a person who was born in Tarsus, which is up in Turkey today. He wasn't part of the Jewish group that was in Palestine or in Jerusalem. And he also was around people, the majority of the people were not Jews. So he probably picked up some of their lingo and maybe some of their ways. Do something about it. But he decided that he was going to be a real Jew. And so he went to Jerusalem and he enrolled, sat at the feet of Gamaliel, who was the great rabbi of the day, scholar. He took all the courses. He got it right. He was made one of the priests in the church. And he took this as a real test of his life. And he set out to be a part of a group that was going to purify their religion. They were going to find those people that didn't hold to what they believed and out them. And they would take them to the courts, to the Jewish courts, and bring their charges, and sometimes the people would be whipped or would be shunned or one or another punishments. In the case of Stephen, they took him out and they stoned him to death, which is a very brutal way to die. They put a person down in a pit and they drop big stones on him. And part of his history is that he held the coats while the other people stoned Stephen to death. Then something happened as he proceeded to find other Christian groups and bring charges against them, throw them into jail, have them killed, etc. And remember the story about his trip on the road to Damascus. And as he went on the road to Damascus, something happened to him. He got perplexed big time. He talked about it as being blinded, being knocked off his horse, so to speak. And not only that, he went to the house of his enemy, the person that he was against, to deal with his blindness. And Paul's life was turned upside down and inside out. And he became so excited about what he discovered there that he said this was so valuable that he wanted to tell everybody about it. He also pointed out, and you can read it in the Bible, that Jesus was not an embodiment, but a spirit that came to him and changed his life. That Jesus was not something out here, but something in here. And in fact, he made the statement that he was a Christian as Peter or James. In fact, he did not count it a big deal to have known Jesus personally. And he took on Peter, if you remember. And he confronted him over the fact that they were trying to hang on to an understanding that was within one religion and pushed away other people. And he said, no, 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 no. This belongs to all humanity. And he spent the rest of his life being about that. Now, because we do have traditions, traditions did grow up during that time and later, in which people who lived in his two-story universe, began to ask the question, if Jesus was so close to God, why did he get crucified? Because most of the gods of that time had it pretty good. They would come down to earth and do a few little things and then go back up to the sky and be gods again. In fact, some of their escapades, if you study Greek mythology and Roman mythology, were pretty dashing. And so the answer became, well, God put him here so that he could sacrifice himself so everybody's sins would be forgiven. Now remember that the idea of forgiveness of sins, the story that encapsulated that for the Jewish religion, was when they took and pinned the sins on the goat and sent the goat out into the desert. That was the image that they had of that. They also had the image that sin was something that was created a long time ago by Adam and Eve, and women had pains in childbirth because of this, and people got sick because of this, and all these horrible things that happened to people were because of sin, and God was coming down out of his sky and doing it to us. This was the common understanding. And our papas and mamas kind of picked up on that to try to explain how in the world this one who meant so much could possibly have been crucified, because crucifixion was really not very high on the hit parade of gods or religion. Because this was what happened to criminals. This is what happened to the worst of us. And of course the Romans used this to keep people in line and to scare people, and sometimes they weren't too particular about who they crucified as long as the effect was there. And so as our papas and mamas went on with this, they developed a theory called atonement or sacrifice. Now you can read that back into the scripture, but if you go back and you look at the scripture without those glasses on, you won't find it. Paul was very clear that sin was something that happened because people did it. And sin was about separating myself and thinking that I am in the place of God. Read the first chapter of Romans. And sin was the breaking of the relationship with God, and all these other things, the nasty things that we like to, put on the list, was a result of sin, but not sin. Sin was the rupture of my relationship to creation, to the Creator.